Today's story is bizarre in the quietest way, the kind of unsettling that starts like a dusty local rumor and then refuses to stay small. It takes us to northeastern Mexico, 1963, where a poor, isolated mountain village sits beneath a line of caves in the Sierra. One night, a 14-year-old boy follows an unexpected glow up the slope. No flashlight, no plan, just curiosity and that old talk about treasure hidden in the rock. But as he gets closer, the light comes with voices, and the voices come with something that sounds wrong. He runs to the police, and for a moment it seems like the adults will handle it. Except the mountain doesn't give things back easily. So what exactly is waiting inside that cave? The mountain is a dark thing even when the sky is full of stars. It rises in layers and ridges, old folds of stone that start near the borderlands and run south like a spine, as if the earth itself tried to stand up and never quite managed it. People who live beneath those ridges learn early that the Sierra is not a backdrop. It is a presence. It watches. It keeps what it's given. It returns very little. On a night in May of 1963, a 14-year-old boy named Sebastian Guerrero leaves his family's home in a small village at the foot of that mountain range. The village is one of several scattered settlements that cling to the lower slopes. Poor, isolated, populated by families who farm because there is nothing else to do and nowhere else to go. Sebastian tells no one where he's going. He doesn't need to. Boys disappear into the hills and return the way dogs do, dirty, hungry, tired, alive. That's normal. The mountain is part of their childhood. He's going up toward the caves. There are stories about those caves. There are always stories about caves, stories about treasure, about men who never returned, about things that breathe where the sun can't reach. In Sebastian's village, the story is simple. Somewhere inside the honeycomb of rock above them, something valuable was hidden long ago, and it might still be there. People say it with half a smile, the way you say something you want to be true but don't fully believe. Sebastian doesn't know if he believes it. That isn't the point. The point is the walk. The point is the night air and the feeling that you can step beyond the borders of your own life for an hour and come back with dirt on your hands and a story in your mouth. He climbs without a lantern. The moon gives enough shape to the path. He knows where the loose shale begins, where the brush thickens, where the slope steepens. He keeps his hands free and his body low, the way the older boys taught him. Then, partway up, he sees something he has never seen before. Light. Not the thin wash of moonlight on stone. This is warm and active, flickering against the cave mouth like a small fire breathing inside the mountain. Sebastian stops. He stares, not quite trusting his eyes. No one goes into the caves at night. Not because it's forbidden by any rule anyone speaks aloud, but because it's understood. People are superstitious in the way poverty makes you superstitious. When you don't control your life, you start believing someone or something else must. Sebastian turns his head, orienting himself. The lit cave is not the closest one. It's farther to the right, farther from his village, farther from the safe habit of paths he knows. He stands there for a long moment, weighing two instincts against each other. The instinct to retreat and the instinct to know. Curiosity wins the way it often does. It doesn't feel like bravery. It feels like being pulled. He changes direction and begins to angle uphill toward the light. As he moves, the mountain becomes quieter in a way that makes him aware of his own breathing. The village falls behind him. The slope steepens. The cave mouth grows larger, and with it, the certainty that this light is real and recent and being made by people. Then he hears the sound. At first, it could be anything. Wind caught wrong, a fox, a man's laugh distorted by stone. But the longer Sebastian listens, the more his mind refuses the lie. It's human. It's one person, and the sound is not joy, it's a scream. Sebastian slows without meaning to. His feet place themselves carefully now, as if the mountain might punish him for being seen. He hears more than one voice. There's the scream, raw, breaking, and beneath it, a synchronized mass of sound, chanting, singing, something communal and rhythmic, as if a crowd is trying to drown out what the one person is doing. Sebastian's stomach tightens. He wants to turn around. He tells himself he should turn around, but he keeps walking. He gets close enough that the light warms the rock near the entrance. Close enough to smell smoke. Close enough to catch the edge of a scent that doesn't belong in dry mountain air. Something metallic, stale, like wet coins. He drops behind a boulder and presses his chest to the ground, listening. The chanting swells and falls. The scream rises again and then becomes something strangled, muffled by hands or by stone or by exhaustion. Sebastian's thoughts scatter. Maybe it's a fight. Maybe someone is drunk. Maybe someone is hurt and they're helping. Maybe. The sound of the crowd makes that last thought collapse. This isn't a scuffle. This is a group. This is organized. This is deliberate. He inches forward until he's at the edge of the cave mouth, an opening wide enough that darkness looks like a room behind it. He takes a breath, then leans his head around the stone. He sees something that his brain cannot interpret cleanly. His mind reaches for a label because it needs a label, because without a label he might not survive what he's seeing. The label his mind finds is childish and ridiculous and perfect. Vampires. He doesn't stay to understand. He doesn't stay to count how many people are inside, or to identify faces, or to learn what they're doing. His body decides that knowledge is dangerous. He pulls back and runs. He runs downhill so fast his feet slip, stones skittering under him, his lungs burning with cold air. He doesn't run toward his village. He doesn't want the thing behind him to follow him home. He runs toward the nearest place he associates with authority, order, rescue. He runs nearly 10 miles to the nearest police station. When he bursts through the doors, he is drenched in sweat and shaking so hard his bones feel loose. The officers look up and see a village boy with terror stamped into every part of him. Sebastian tries to speak. The words won't come in the right order. He says cave. He says people. He says light. He says someone screaming. And then, when his voice finally finds a shape, he says the only thing his mind has been able to hold on to. I think I saw vampires. The officers exchange looks. A boy, a story, a superstition. One of them tries to be kind. Another tries to be firm. They give him water. They tell him he's panicked. They say that if something real is happening, they'll hear about it. They promise to follow up in the way adults promise things to children when they want the child to stop talking. Sebastian feels his face heat with frustration and shame. He tries to explain again, but he can't describe what he saw without sounding insane. In the end, they drive him back to his village and leave him at his family's door like a stray dog returned to its owner. That night, the village goes to bed as if nothing has happened. But Sebastian lies awake with the mountain inside his head. By morning, he cannot stand it. He runs back to the station. He begs, he insists. And this time, one officer, a man named Luis Martinez, looks at the boy long enough to hear what is beneath the words. Luis has seen fear before. He knows the difference between a boy trying to get attention and a boy trying to save his own life from a memory. Luis sighs, as if annoyed at the inconvenience of being responsible, and says, "Fine, you bring me there." Sebastian nods so fast it hurts. They leave in a patrol car and head toward the foothills. Hours pass. The station grows restless. No one hears from Luis on the radio. By afternoon, the other officers are calling him, annoyed at first, then confused, then concerned. By evening, the concern curdles into something heavier. They drive to Sebastian's village looking for answers. Sebastian's family opens the door and tells them the boy never came home. A police investigator and a 14-year-old are missing in the mountains. That is not a story you ignore. Understaffed and suddenly aware of their own limits, the local police contact the Mexican army for support. A unit is sent. Vehicles gather, men are armed, radios crackle. Later that night, the police and soldiers move toward the caves, and when they finally reach the mouth, Sebastian described, when their lights spill into the stone throat of the mountain, what waits inside will force even hardened men to understand that something has been growing in that dark for months. To understand what they find, you have to go back 6 months. Back before the screams. Back before the boy. Back before the mountain's secret had a witness. In December of 1962, 2 brothers arrive in Yerbabuena with empty pockets and full mouths. Their names are Santos and Cayetano Hernandez, and they make their living the way many men do when they have nothing else to sell. They sell belief. They drift from place to place, stealing what they can, swindling who they can, relying on charisma and the human weakness for hope. They choose Yerbabuena because it is small, about 20 families. Poor, largely cut off from the world beyond the foothills, it is the kind of village where news arrives late, where rumors replace newspapers, where people are accustomed to enduring hardship and therefore ready to seize anything that promises relief. The brothers do not arrive quietly. They arrive like actors who have been rehearsing. They speak in the village square with the confidence of men who have already decided how everyone will respond. They claim they are prophets of exiled Inca gods, and they say the gods have chosen Yerbabuena for a return of fortune. There is treasure, they insist, hidden in the caves above. The gods will reveal it, but only to those who obey. The village listens. Some villagers are skeptical, but skepticism is a luxury. You have to be comfortable to doubt properly. When you are hungry, you doubt in whispers, but you hope out loud. The brothers begin demanding offerings, food, labor, money where money exists, deference where nothing else can be given. They demand that certain villagers come to the caves for ceremonies. They isolate people from one another by creating a hierarchy. Some are favored, others unclean, and the brothers position themselves as the only bridge between the villagers and the promised riches. At first, it works like any con works. It relies on embarrassment. Once you've given something away, you don't want to admit you were fooled. So you give more. Weeks pass, months begin to form, but there is a problem with promises. Eventually people notice the promised thing isn't arriving. The treasure does not appear. The hardships remain. The Hernandez brothers eat well while the villagers keep tightening their belts. Grumbling starts. It's quiet, but it spreads. Men speak to their wives at night. Wives speak to their sisters. People ask the same dangerous question in different words. Why are we doing this? Santos and Cayetano sense the shift. They are con men, not fools. They understand when a crowd is about to turn. They could leave. They have already taken plenty. Instead, they make a choice that will change Yerbabuena in a way no one can undo. They decide to escalate the illusion. They leave the village for a nearby city, accounts differ on exactly where, and they go looking for something that can't be argued with, a living symbol, a divine presence that will renew fear and obedience. They find Magdalena Solís. Magdalena is young, shaped by poverty and by being used. She has been forced into adult work early, and her brother Eliezer controls much of her life, acting as her pimp and handler. Control has never belonged to her. Power has always belonged to someone else. When Santos and Cayetano propose their plan, they do not phrase it as religion. They phrase it as opportunity. Come with us, they say. You will be a goddess. You will be worshipped. You will be feared. We will pay you. You will live above the villagers instead of beneath men like us. Magdalena agrees. Eliezer comes with her. The four of them return to Yerbabuena with the cold confidence of people carrying a match toward dry grass. They do not introduce Magdalena in the village. They keep her hidden. At night, they guide her up to one of the caves and dress her for theater. Fabric, ornaments, a costume designed to turn a poor young woman into an archetype. They tell the villagers there will be a ceremony. They march them uphill like a congregation. Inside the cave, the brothers perform a smokescreen trick. Basic stage magic. Smoke and shadows in a dark room. In the confusion, they signal Magdalena. She steps through the smoke into the firelight, and she declares herself divine. The villagers see a woman emerging from smoke inside a cave and do what frightened people do when confronted with the impossible. They accept it. They kneel, they obey. The Khan is saved. For Santos and Cayetano, the plan has worked perfectly. For Yerbabuena, the plan has only begun. Because something happens in the instant Magdalena sees the villagers looking at her like she is more than human. Something in her shifts. It's not mystical. It's psychological. It's the sudden intoxication of reverence. A person starved of control is offered a roomful of obedience, and it hits her like liquor hits an empty stomach. The costume stops feeling like costume. The smoke stops feeling like trick. The cave stops being a stage and becomes a temple. Magdalena walks out of that cave not just playing a goddess, but beginning to believe in the deepest animal part of herself, that she is one. And if she is divine, then anything she wants is not just desire. It is law. In the weeks that follow, the village's obedience hardens into routine. Magdalena moves through Yerbabuena like a new weather system. Hot, oppressive, unavoidable. People measure their days by her moods. Families rearrange their lives around her demands. The Hernandez brothers remain near the top of the structure, but it becomes clear quickly that they have unleashed something they cannot fully steer. Magdalena's authority is fed by fear, and fear is easier to maintain than hope. She threatens punishment. She stages ceremonies. She demands tributes not just of food and labor, but of humiliation, small breaks of dignity that ensure people remain pliable. The villagers comply because compliance is contagious. Once a few people comply, others follow, and soon the whole village is moving in a single direction, like a herd. And then Magdalena begins to insist on something new. At first, it looks like superstition in a village full of superstition. She speaks about blood, as if it is sacred fuel, as if divinity requires a certain kind of payment. She begins with animals, goats, chickens, whatever people can spare. The villagers slaughter livestock because they are told it will protect them, will bring fortune, will appease a goddess whose anger feels immediate and personal. They bring her bowls and cups. They avoid looking at her mouth. They tell themselves this is temporary. They tell themselves the treasure will come soon. But a ritual is never temporary once it has been normalized. Once you do a thing once, it becomes a thing you can do again. Once the village agrees that blood is part of worship, blood becomes the easiest tool of control. As Magdalena's sense of self inflates, her demands become less symbolic and more literal. The animal offerings stop satisfying her, not because of some ancient truth, but because power always needs to intensify. What once thrilled you stops working. You need more to feel the same. Then something happens that seals the village's fate. Two villagers decide they want out. They whisper plans to leave Yerbabuena, to walk away before the Khan collapses, before the goddess demands something that can't be undone. But in a village that small, secrets don't survive. Someone tells the brothers tell Magdalena. And Magdalena, faced with the possibility of defiance, chooses a response that is not persuasion. It is example. She calls the villagers to the cave. They go because refusal now feels impossible. They go because no one wants to be the one singled out. They go because fear has replaced morality with survival. Inside the cave, under smoke and firelight, Magdalena points at the two dissenters. She does not touch them. She doesn't need to. She orders the village to prove its loyalty. What follows is not described cleanly by anyone who lived through it. People who commit terrible things together do not speak of details. They speak of inevitability. They say it happened quickly. They say they couldn't stop it. They say they were afraid. When it's over, Magdalena has made her point. Leaving is not an option. But something else has happened too. Something even more dangerous. The village has crossed a line. And once a community crosses a line together, it becomes bound by that act the way criminals are bound by shared guilt. Now every villager has something to hide. Now silence is not just fear of Magdalena. It's fear of the truth. Magdalena takes what she wants from the ritual, what she insists she needs, and afterward, she is not diminished. She is strengthened. She begins calling herself and being called a priestess, no longer merely a goddess figure, but a figure who requires blood as proof of worship. This is where the title earns itself. This is where the Khan curdles into cult. Because from that night forward, the cave is no longer a stage. It is an altar. And Magdalena Solís becomes, in practice, what later headlines will name her, the High Priestess of Blood. In the following weeks, Yerbabuena turns inward. The villagers live in a constant state of waiting. The kind of waiting that destroys you slowly. Waiting to be summoned. Waiting to learn who has angered the priestess. Waiting to find out who will be made an example next. Magdalena announces ceremonies without warning. People are forced up the slope in groups. Inside the cave, smoke rolls along the ceiling. Voices chant in unison, not because everyone believes, but because group sound makes individual doubt harder to hear. And then Magdalena chooses. Sometimes she frames her choice as divine insight. Sometimes she calls it punishment for impurity. Sometimes she simply points. The terrifying part is not that she points. The terrifying part is what the villagers do next. They do what they did the first time. They move together. They obey together. They turn on the chosen person together because if they don't, the priestess might point at them. Magdalena's blood rituals escalate, not in theatrical flourish, but in cold routine. She insists that blood is the only thing that sustains divinity. She presents it as a necessary offering, a sacred transaction. She drinks from a cup as if it is communion. She makes others drink too, binding them further, ensuring that no one can later claim innocence without admitting they participated. Somewhere in this period, The Hernandez brothers realize the truth. They are no longer running the con. They are trapped inside it. But they also understand that leaving would mean becoming a target. So they stay. They assist. They benefit. They become part of the machinery. Meanwhile, outside the village, the world continues as if Yerbabuena is just another dot at the foot of the Sierra. No newspaper comes. No priest arrives to investigate. No government official checks on the rumors. Isolation is a kind of camouflage. It hides sins the way darkness hides faces. And so the cult continues, week after week, until the night Sebastian Guerrero follows the wrong light. When Luis Martinez and Sebastian approach the cave in daylight, the mountain looks harmless in the way a weapon looks harmless when it's lying on a table. The cave mouth is just rock. The slope is just dirt. Birds move through the trees. But Sebastian can feel the difference in the air. He can feel it the way you feel a room after someone has been screaming in it, like the walls are still holding sound. Luis tells the boy to stay close. His voice has lost its earlier skepticism. He checks his sidearm, more out of habit than confidence, and moves uphill. Sebastian watches him, this adult with a uniform and a gun, trying to believe that this time someone will take the mountain from him and make it make sense. As they get close to the entrance, the smell hits first. Smoke, stale and clinging, as if the cave has been used recently. Then comes the faint sound. Soft voices, many voices, moving together like a single throat. Luis stops. He raises a hand. He listens. Then, slowly, he steps toward the opening. Sebastian follows a pace behind. Neither of them knows that someone inside has already seen them. The cult is not a secretive thing by accident anymore. It has become a paranoid thing by necessity. The villagers, bound by guilt and fear, watch the paths. They post lookouts. They listen for outsiders the way criminals listen for police sirens. And when they spot a boy and an investigator approaching the cave, they do not panic. They react. They move quickly, quietly, with the practiced coordination of people who have done hard things together for weeks. Luis and Sebastian step into the mouth of the cave, and the mountain swallows them. What happens next is reconstructed later from evidence, from what was found, from what could be inferred by men who did not want to imagine too much. The details are disputed in places, but the shape is consistent. Sebastian and Luis are captured, dragged deeper into the cave system, and turned into the kind of offering the priestess has been demanding. The boy who ran for help becomes proof that help can be consumed. The officer who believed him becomes proof that authority is not stronger than fear when fear has a whole village behind it. By the time the police station realizes Luis is not returning, the damage is already done. By the time the army is called, the cult is already preparing. When the authorities arrive in Yerbabuena that night, the village is quiet in a way that feels staged. Doors are shut. The square is empty. It looks like a place holding its breath, because everyone has been ordered up toward the caves. The cult has barricaded itself inside, not as peaceful worshippers, as people who know the only way forward is through violence. The authorities move uphill with rifles and flashlights, boots crunching on rock. They call out. They demand surrender. From inside the cave comes an answer in gunfire. The firefight is short in the way desperate things are short. The cave's entrance becomes a choke point, noise ricocheting off stone. Smoke mixes with dust. Men shout orders and then lose their voices to echo. When it's over, Bodies lie in places bodies shouldn't lie. Villagers who were farmers months ago now dead in a cave because they followed a priestess into a trap of their own making. The Hernandez brothers are killed amid the collapse. Accounts differ on exactly how each dies, but both are gone when the mountain finally gives up its occupants. When the authorities push deeper into the cave, they find what remains of weeks of ritual: stained pikes, improvised altars, the evidence of repeated sacrifice and repeated drinking, not as metaphor, not as rumor, but as practice. They find the residue of a village's moral collapse, and then they go looking for the missing boy and the missing officer. They find them. What is left to identify? They find enough to confirm that Sebastian Guerrero and Luis Martinez did not simply get lost in the Sierra. They were taken. They were made into offerings. And the priestess, Magdalena Solís, did what she had been doing for weeks, treating blood as sacrament, treating violence as proof of divinity. Afterward, as the authorities sweep the village, they find Magdalena and her brother Eleazar alive, hiding, trying to survive the collapse of the world they built. They are arrested. The mountain finally is forced to open its hand. The trial that follows is its own kind of silence. Magdalena and Eleazar are sentenced to long prison terms. Surviving villagers are sentenced too. Men and women who participated, who fought, who complied, who became part of the cult's machinery. The official record focuses on what can be proven: specific victims, identifiable remains, direct responsibility. But the strangest detail, the one that doesn't sit right even after the legal outcome, is what doesn't happen. People expect testimony. They expect villagers to turn on the priestess once the spell is broken. They expect the surviving members to rush toward reduced sentences by giving the authorities everything they know. Instead, many remain quiet. They do not testify the way outsiders think they should. They do not speak freely about what happened inside the cave. They do not describe Magdalena with the casual contempt you'd expect once she's behind bars. It's as if the village's fear survives the raid, as if the cave taught them a permanent lesson. Once you kneel to something, you don't always learn how to stand again. Magdalena's later life ends in uncertainty. Reports differ, details fade, the world loses interest. She is removed from the mountain, but the mountain's story clings to her name. And the lingering residue, the thing that keeps this from becoming a neat case closed, is that the true engine of the horror isn't just a con man's lie or one woman's delusion. It's a whole community learning, step by step, that morality can be traded for safety. And that once you make that trade, you may never fully buy your way back. Somewhere in the Sierra Madre Oriental, the caves remain. People still tell stories about hidden treasure. And if you stand at the foot of those ridges at night, you can understand how it happens, how a flicker of light in the wrong place can pull a boy uphill, how a village can be convinced to kneel, and how a woman who has never had power can discover the oldest kind of power there is. Not wealth, not prophecy, not even violence, but the ability to make other people do violence for you and call it worship. This was Midnight Horror Society, dark curiosity for sleep. Until your next midnight session, sleep well.